are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for we are back here on the GSMC.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, November 14th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see any of your thoughts or comments be acknowledged during the live broadcast. You want to see me acknowledge it. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. Also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to preview tonight's game to kick off Week 11. I don't know why I'm saying 18. Week 11 between the Eagles and the Commanders. A big NFC East matchup. Whoever wins this game will take over sole possession of first place. So big matchup there. A couple of big matchups this weekend, which we'll preview those tomorrow. But we'll get into that. We'll also talk about the news that broke yesterday about Anthony Richardson. He is going to take back the starting job from Joe Flacco. The Colts went 0-2 and Flacco starts, and now Anthony Richardson steps back in. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about Aaron Rodgers and whether he's going to play in 2025 or not. We'll also get into talking about what Joe Schoen, the general manager of the New York Giants, had to say about the quarterback position and whether or not Daniel Jones is going to play when the Giants come out of their bye week in Week 12. And then we'll also talk about the head coaches. The head coaches that are on the hot seat, who's likely to lose their job after the season. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about the NFC East matchup tonight between the Eagles and the Commanders. So last year, the Eagles did sweep the season series, but it wasn't easy. It was not easy by any means. The Commanders made it tough on them, and this was with Sam Howell at quarterback. But now they got Jayden Daniels, who is in line to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. And both games last year were very high scoring. And like I said, that was with Sam Howell playing quarterback. One of the games ended up going into overtime, and Jake Elliott ended up kicking a game-winning field goal. I just want to double-check what the final scores of those matchups were. So the first one was 34-31. So Jake Elliott kicked the game-winning field goal, and the other one was 38-31 Eagles. And the Eagles actually were trailing in that game, I believe. And taking a look at the stats, Jalen Hurts was good in the first meeting, 25-37, 319 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. DeAndre Swift was the leading rusher. Obviously now the Eagles have Saquon Barkley. Swift had 56 yards on the ground and a touchdown. A.J. Brown, he was great in both games. 9 receptions for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns in the first meeting. Devontae Smith had 7 for 78. Eagles defense had 5 sacks in the game. Hassan Reddick had a sack in this game, but obviously he's not on the team anymore. And then on the other side, Sam Howell, who's not with them, he's now a backup on the Seahawks. He went 29 of 41 for 290 yards and 1 touchdown. Brian Robinson Jr., who we will see tonight, it's likely he's going to play. He had 14 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin had 8 receptions for 86 yards in that game. And then in the second meeting between the two teams, this one was 38-31. And like I said, the Eagles were trailing in this game, but they did come back. High-scoring fourth quarter. The Eagles had 21 points in the fourth quarter, and the Commanders had 14. So for the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, he was solid in that game. Went 29 to 38 for 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Swift, 57 yards on the ground and the touchdown. A.J. Brown, 8 receptions for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he was unbelievable in those two games, like I said. Devontae Smith, 7 for 99 and a touchdown. Dallas Goedert had 4 for 36. Julio Jones actually had a touchdown in that game. He was a late season pickup. And then for the Commanders, Sam Howell had 4 touchdowns. He had almost 400 yards passing, 397 yards passing. Brian Robinson Jr. had 59 yards on the ground. Jahan Dotson, who is now with the Eagles, he was their leading receiver in that game. He had 8 receptions for 108 yards and a touchdown. Jamison Crowder had 7 for 95 and a touchdown. Terry McLaurin had 5 for 63 and a touchdown. But like I said, Eagles won both games. And what to expect from this game? I do expect it to be very competitive. The Commanders are 3.5-point underdogs in this game. And it's not like the Commanders have not beaten the Eagles in recent memory. You go back to 2 years ago when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl and Taylor Heineke and the Commanders beat them on that Monday night. So I think the Commanders definitely have a chance to win this game. And looking at the league rankings for this season, in terms of passing yards per game, the Commanders are 14th. Eagles are 19th. Rushing yards per game, both teams are top 5. The Eagles are 2nd, and the Commanders are 4th. So expect that to play a role tonight. Saquon Barkley did not have a good game last week against the Cowboys. I expect him to bounce back in this game. And then points per game, the Commanders are 3rd and the Eagles are 7th. And then on the defensive side of the ball, both teams actually are top 10 against the pass. Eagles defense is 3rd, giving up an average of 192.4 passing yards per game. And the Commanders defense is actually 5th, giving up an average of 198.6. And they struggled last year. Their secondary was not good, but it's a better unit this year. But against the run is where there is a huge disparity. So the Eagles are 5th. They're giving up an average of 100.7 rushing yards per game, and the Commanders are 28th, giving up an average of 142.7 rushing yards per game. So like I said, Saquon Barkley did not have a good game last week. I think he's going to do better here. And you also have to worry about Jalen Hurts as well, running with the football. And he did well doing that last week against the Cowboys. And then points allowed, Eagles defense is 5th, and the Commanders defense is 12th. So we'll see what happens. The Eagles defense is better than it has been. Last year was not a very good unit, but this year it's kind of bounced back a little bit. But the thing is with the Eagles is I don't trust them. I don't trust them as my camera just turns off as we continue to have issues with that. But I don't, because, they have these big leads. Against Jacksonville, they had that big lead, and then they end up, almost blowing it. They ended up winning the game, but that game got very dicey when it shouldn't have. So we'll see what happens in this game. I'm actually going to take the Commanders to win outright. I think they bounce back here after losing that tough game to the Steelers. I like them to win this game just because I don't trust the Eagles. And I feel like the Eagles, they're due for a loss. I think their last loss came against the Buccaneers. Because right now they're 7-2. Yeah, their last loss came in Week 4 against the Buccaneers. And they have beaten the Browns, the Giants, the Bengals, who don't have a good defense, the Jaguars, and the Cowboys with Cooper Rush at quarterback. So now this is a test for them. And I think they will be up for the challenge. I think their offense will put up points, but for some reason I like the Commanders here. Now, it doesn't help me in terms of my predictions because I did have the Eagles winning the NFC East. So, it's either my predictions end up being right from the start of the year or my current prediction right here, which is having the Commanders win this game. So, but look, I got to continue to give the Commanders props because I was so wrong on them. They have played really well. They have surprised me. And Dan Quinn has his team playing really well. The defense has been a huge improvement this year. And Jayden Daniels, he has been as advertised. He's been very good. And like I said, he's, possibly going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So he's definitely up there. And I just think this Commanders team, they know how to play against the Eagles. And I think they are I think they can get a win here. Even though it's going to be tough. It's in Philly. And the Eagles, want to protect their home field. But I like the Commanders to win this game. I feel like Jalen Hurts is going to turn the ball over at a crucial point in the game, which is going to lead to the Commanders winning. But like I said, I think they're going to lean on Saquon Barkley tonight. A.J. Brown, like I said, had really good games against them last year, so they're going to lean on him as well. Hurts is going to get him the ball. Devontae Smith was banged up, got banged up last week, I believe, against the Cowboys. So let's kind of look at his status for the game. And no, he's not appearing on the injury report, so I think he's good to go. Because I know he had the questionable label on him on the fantasy app, on the sleeper app. But yeah, no, he's good to go. So he was dealing with a bit of a hamstring injury, but yeah, no, he's good to go. So they got all their weapons for this game, so that's huge. But like I said, I think the Commanders pull off the upset here, if we're going to even call it that. But this is a big game because both teams are looking to be in first place after this week in sole possession. And obviously they play each other later on. But, if you can win this first matchup, you have a leg up. Especially going we're getting into the home stretch here. So, but like I said, I think the Commanders can pull off the upset here. So that's my prediction. But if not, I am taking them with the points. So if the Eagles win and the Commanders cover, I will take that. But I'm actually going to say that they win outright. So we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you think wins this game? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, we will talk about Anthony Richardson back as the starting quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. Reclaims the starting role. Flacco, of course, started the previous 2 games. But now Anthony Richardson steps back in. He will be starting for the Colts when they take on the Jets, who we will talk about a little later in the show. He'll be starting against them on Sunday. So we'll talk about all that when we return from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows where 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about Anthony Richardson reclaiming the starting quarterback job from Joe Flacco after 2 games. The Colts, they thought, Flacco could recapture that magic from last year, I guess. And the Colts have lost their last 2 games, and he was not great. So they go back to Richardson. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, he did say that, I did watch a little bit of his interview. He did say that this time off definitely helped him. So maybe he comes out as a different player. And look, I'm not ready to give up on Anthony Richardson. I think the talent is there. It is there because we've seen some of the throws that he makes, and we're very impressed by it. But then there's also the turnovers, that kind of equal everything out. So I still think he's going to be a good player. And maybe, sitting for these couple of games, got his mind right, got to just see how Flacco operates. Obviously, two very different quarterbacks from different eras. I mean, Flacco is a traditional pocket passer. I mean, he's a statue back there. But Anthony Richardson, a big part of his game is also running with the ball. So, and they're going up against a team on Sunday in the Jets that struggle against stopping the run. But let's see, what happens. I think that he could still be the answer for the Colts. Although, when you tap out and you talk about how you were tired in a game, that doesn't look good. But I think if he comes out and he plays well to end the year, then we'll forget about him being tired and saying that. But he's going to be starting on Sunday, and it was a combination of just him being inconsistent and just a lack of on-field leadership, which, like I talked about, which was him tapping out of the game against the Texans. But he's back in. Shane Steichen praised Richardson's recent strides in professionalism and commitment, citing improvements in his focus and preparation. Shane Steichen acknowledged Richardson is not a finished product, but he's a heck of a talent, and that staff will work to develop him further. Josh Downs, one of their receivers, expressed trust in Richardson's readiness and his dedication, noting Richardson's hard work and positive attitude. So it seems like it has paid off. And sometimes, like, if you're a young player, you do need to be humbled a little bit. I know I've probably said that in the past, but sometimes you need that. And, there are players in this league that have experienced things that have humbled them. And, Richardson is probably, one of those players that you could put into that category. So, if he comes out and the Colts finish the season strong, maybe they fall a little bit short of the playoffs, but they finish the season strong and he plays really well, then you would look back on this and say, hey, this was the right decision to have him sit for a little bit and kind of get his mind right and see how, playing the quarterback position is done, even though Flacco didn't play great, but, just kind of get your mind right. And we'll see. The first test is on Sunday against the Jets, which is a team, like I said, that struggles at stopping the run. And Richardson's a guy that, will take off and run with it if he has to. So, I do like that matchup for the Colts. I think this is a good spot to, get reacclimated because the Jets are, they're not playing well. They are in a downward spiral. And we'll get into them when I talk about Aaron Rodgers in the next segment. But like I said, I do think that's a good matchup for them. And in terms of, can the Colts still make the playoffs? Yeah, I mean, I think they can, but they got to start winning games now. They thought that switching it to Flacco, they would win games and, they would be in a good spot because they were 4-3 when they made the switch. But they lost their last two. They lost to the Vikings, and then they just lost to the Bills too at home. And we'll see if they can make a run. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough, and it really, I think, all falls on the shoulders of Anthony Richardson. Can he play good enough to lead them to a playoff berth? And the only way they're really going to get it, in my opinion, is, once again, the wild card. Because right now, they're 2.5 games back. They're 4-6. And actually, when they made the switch to Flacco, They were 4-4. And that was week 8. They lost to the Texans and they lost to the Vikings and the Bills. The Vikings and Bills. Flacco, of course, started. But yeah, they're 4-6, 2.5 games back. The Broncos are 5-5. So I mean, they're not out of it. But like I said, they got to start winning games. And you got the Jets on the schedule, which I think they should win that game. But who knows? Then you got the Lions the following week. You got the Patriots. Then you go into the bye. Then you're at the Broncos, home against the Titans, at the Giants, and then home against the Jaguars. So there are winnable games on the schedule. But you also are going to need some help. And the head-to-head matchup with the Broncos, if they can win that, that would be huge. Because that's one of the teams that's ahead of you right now. That's occupying that last wildcard spot. So we'll see what happens. But, right now, they just got to take it game by game. And let's see how he plays against the Jets. That's really, like I said, that's really the first test since his benching. And let's see if it actually did pay off and he makes smarter decisions. Because, like I said, the talent is there. I mean, you see some of these deep balls to Alec Pierce and, his mobility, of course. But then, there was that bad red zone interception against the Bears that he had earlier this year. The turnovers have been a problem. The inconsistency. But if he could figure it out, I think he could be a really good quarterback. So like I said, I am not ready to give up on him. I'm not. Right now on the year, 4 touchdowns to 7 picks. It's not good. Not good at all. And he's 59 of 133. That is not good either. His completion percentage is not good. So things got to improve. And, last year he basically missed his rookie season. So this is kind of a make-up for that. So, we'll see what he could do in this final stretch of the season here. But I do think that, we'll maybe see some better results. Maybe. But also, I wanted to bring up another quarterback in the AFC South as well. So it doesn't look like Trevor Lawrence is playing again for the Jags in Week 11. It will be Mac Jones again, and they will be taking on the Detroit Lions, who are arguably the best team in football right now. So, the Jags season just continues to be a huge disappointment. And we'll be talking about them, towards the end of the show when I go over coaches that are likely not coming back. But, that was other news that broke. So, but the AFC South is pretty much wrapped up. The Texans got it wrapped up. And, I say that now, but if you remember from last year, I kept saying, the Jags got this division wrapped up. There's nothing to worry about. And then they collapsed, and the Texans ended up winning it. So, but I think this year, the way teams are going, the Jags and the Titans are pretty much out of it, or are out of it. The Colts, let's see what they do during this final stretch here. But, the Texans are 2-0 against them. So, it's their best bet is the wild card. The Texans are going to win this division. But they also have their issues too. And the Colts had a chance to beat them the second time. Well, actually both times, really. Jaguars had a chance to beat them. And they just came off of that huge collapse against the Lions, up 23-6. So they are beatable, but the teams in their division cannot take advantage of that. But we'll see what happens, and hopefully Anthony Richardson, like I said, plays well, and to end off the season here, and we continue to see him and C.J. Stroud go at it. Because they are exciting players if they can both be good at the same time. Stroud's, of course, dealing with his sophomore slump a little bit, which I don't think is entirely his fault, but he's kind of going through some things as well. But if we can have a matchup of C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson for the next 10 years, and both these quarterbacks turn out to be elite. That's going to be fun to watch. So, but let me know what you guys think, though, about Richardson stepping back into the starting job. How do you think he'll play? Do you think that the time off helped him? I mean, I think to some extent it did. But we will have to see when he takes the field on Sunday and how he plays against the Jets. So, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat to create a super chat of any thought or comment you may want to see me acknowledge throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about Aaron Rodgers and the likelihood of him playing in 2025. We'll get into that. I'll give you my thoughts, whether he should come back, whether he should call it a career. We'll get into that whole discussion when we come back, because I know that's really been a topic for a lot of media outlets. So, of course, I got to give my 2 cents on the matter. So that is what we will get into when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Aaron Rodgers and will he return in 2025. So he did meet with the media, and he was asked this question, and he basically said, I think so, yeah, on his desire to play in 2025. Now, next year, Rodgers, when it comes to a cap hit, it's going to be $49 million. And, you know, that is a lot of money. And I know that there's, you know, I with what I've been listening to or watching, it's a lot of money. He's not going to walk away from it. And then it's, well, if he doesn't think he can play anymore, then he's going to walk away from it. But does he believe that he doesn't have it anymore? And I think he still does believe that he could play good football. And when you look at his numbers, it's not like Peyton Manning in his final season, where he threw 9 touchdowns and threw 17 interceptions. Rodgers got 15 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, which, again, is not spectacular, but I wouldn't say those are bad, but you would expect him to have a better year. And he's not having that right now. He's having, to his standards, one of his worst years ever. And the Jets as a team have taken a huge step back in terms of, well, really their defense. I mean, their defense, I think, is the biggest surprise for me, is just how bad that's been. because I thought this defense was going to be, continue to be the unit that it has been these past few years, and it just hasn't materialized that way. Now there's been injuries and holdouts, and Hassan Reddick wasn't on the team last year, but still, I mean, you would have liked to have had him to start the year. There were guys that they let go on the defensive line. Also, it seems like guys are regressing. Guys can't tackle. But a lot of that has to do with coaching. It's just all facets of the team have been disappointments. The coaching, special teams has been a disappointment. I mean, Greg Zuerlein, if he makes, his kicks, the Jets have a better record right now. The defense has been a disappointment, and the offense has been a disappointment. And I know when I was watching the Michael Kay show, they had Dan Orlovsky on, and, they asked him, about Rodgers, and he just talked about how Rodgers doesn't really throw the ball deep, and whether it's he just can't do it, or, it's just, or if it's something else. And Orlovsky was talking about how it could be he just doesn't want to get hit. And that's why you see a lot of checkdowns to Breece Hall, a lot of checkdowns to Braylon Allen, a lot of quick throws, because the offensive line has not been great this year. Now, does that mean that Rodgers, hasn't made any bad throws? Yes. I mean, there are throws that he has made where, there's miscommunication with the receiver. He's throwing it at the receiver's feet, whatever the case may be. So it's not like Rodgers is, completely dismissed from this. He isn't playing great, but at the same time, he doesn't want to get hit. And Orlovsky brought up Tom Brady, his final season. Tom Brady was not great his last year. And the main reason for that is the offensive line was not good. So it was a lot of checkdowns to Leonard Fournette. He didn't have the time like he did the first couple of years in Tampa to throw it deep. And it's kind of similar here. And he also talked about how early on in the season Rodgers was healthy. But now, because he's taken so many hits, that's maybe resulted in him not playing as well as he did to start off the year. Because, Rodgers was playing okay to start off the year. And now that he's taken all this punishment, it's kind of weird on him because he's 40 years old. So, again, I don't want people to think that Rodgers, I'm making excuses for him, but that's just the reality. He's 40 years old. He doesn't want to get hit. Tom Brady didn't want to get hit. Tom Brady got rid of the ball quicker than anybody. It's going to happen. But he's got to play better. If they're going to want to make a run here, he has to play better. But it's not really going to matter because the defense also has to play better. And they're not coached well. So, but when it comes to playing in 2025, should he come back? Now, I don't want to see him go out like this, and I'm going to sound like I did last year, except it was different because he was injured last year. Now he's playing, but he's not playing well. It's just, he probably does come back, and one thing that's brought up is, well, if you're the Jets then and you got a high draft pick, then you take a quarterback and you have them sit behind Rodgers for a year, and then they take over the following season, which I don't think is a bad idea. But you got to get the right head coach in here. And that's something that the Jets have failed to do for years now. Similar to the team that we will talk about in the next segment. Since Rex Ryan brought them to 2 AFC championship games, you had Todd Bowles. First year he was good, but they missed the playoffs. Then you bring in Adam Gase, which should have never happened. And then you bring in Robert Saleh. And it looked like things were maybe going to go in the right direction, but they didn't get the quarterback right, and Saleh was not an offensive guy. He was a good defensive coach, is a good defensive coach, but not a good offensive coach. And And, of course, with the Rodgers experiment, that has not worked out. And he, of course, was let go during the year, and Jeff Ulbrich has taken over. But, yeah, I mean, you got to get the right head coach in here, and it's got to be someone that has a proven track record. I mean, there are candidates out there that they could go and get, but I don't know. The Jets are in a tough spot. You know, they went out and they traded for Hassan Reddick. They traded for Devontae Adams in the middle of the year. They got Hassan Reddick back. You got a lot of talent on this team. It's just, it hasn't worked out. And, you know, I think for Rodgers, he would have to end up in the right situation. I mean, if he comes back next year to the Jets, so be it. But, again, I bring up Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Matthew Stafford. They all switched teams, but they went to teams that had solid defenses in place, which we thought the Jets were going to have, but it's not. You had good weapons, which the Jets also had, with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, and then they traded for Devontae Adams. But, head coach. You need a head coach. Brady had Arians. Peyton Manning had John Fox, and then Gary Kubiak, who he won a Super Bowl with, although that was off of Wade Phillips and the Broncos defense. But still, went to 2 Super Bowls with Fox and Kubiak, and Stafford had Sean McVay. Those are all proven head coaches. Robert Saleh was not a proven head coach. You know, so it's just, again, Rodgers, it's not played good, but still, coaching does matter. And the Jets did not have that when Rodgers got here. Now, I think if Rodgers went to, like, the Steelers, probably would have got better results because of the head coach that they have there in Mike Tomlin. Now, the Steelers' offensive line has its problems, but you got Mike Tomlin there. So, that could have been a spot he could have landed at, but he decided to go to the Jets, and I think the Jets did the right thing by getting him. It's just, it did not work out. It was supposed to be better than this, and it's not. But we'll see. I mean, there's still time. I mean, maybe they turn it around somehow and they go on a run. Because, again, if you remember, 2022, the Packers were 4-8, 4-7, 4-8, whatever it was. And they went on a run. Now, they missed the playoffs, but they got back to 500, and they did lose the final week of the season. But, again, Matt LaFleur is also a good coach. So you have to also credit him for that, too. And look at how the Packers are without Aaron Rodgers. You know, and Jordan Love. Jordan Love has, you know, had his issues this year with the turnovers, but he's the guy. He is the guy. And, you know, how he played last year, in the beginning he wasn't great. Well, it was good. Then in the middle of the part of the season, people had their doubts, and then the Packers went on that run. You credit Jordan Love, but you also got to credit Matt LaFleur, too. Matt LaFleur is a good coach. The Jets don't have good coaching. So until they bring in a good coaching staff, like if you bring in a good, proven coaching staff, which I don't know who it's going to be. I mean, again, there's guys out there. And you somehow could fix this thing. Maybe. You know, maybe Rodgers can go out on a better note next year, but I don't know. Because he could still throw it. It's just, the other thing, too, is the consistency is not there either. Because I do think he can throw it deep. It's not like his arm strength is not there. His arm strength is there. It's just the consistency is not there like it used to be. And a big part of his game, I mean, it's not as much as, you know, like Lamar Jackson. It's his mobility. He's got to be able to move around a little bit. You can't really do that. And part of that is because he's banged up. So, we'll see what happens. But, I mean, it seems like, unless, like, the season completely falls apart and they only finish with 3 wins, then maybe he changes his mind and says, I'm done. I agree with that, but I think if they, you know, can rattle off a few wins here and, he plays good, then he comes back. So, we'll see. I'm going to lean towards saying he does come back right now, but also just because he flat out said that he wants to play. But he could always change his mind. It's possible. But let me know what you guys think. Does Rodgers come back in 2025? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about the other New York team. We'll talk about Joe Schoen, the general manager of the Giants, talking about Daniel Jones and or just really what he had to say recently and how we should interpret it. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about Daniel Jones. We'll talk about what Joe Schoen had to say recently when he met with the media, GM for the Giants, and just give you my thoughts on what I think is going to happen. So, basically, he was asked about Daniel Jones and his future and, if he's going to play. The Giants are in a bye week right now, and they could make a change at quarterback when they come out of the bye if they take on the Buccaneers out of the bye week. But Joe Schoen basically said that any decision on Daniel Jones' future as the starting quarterback would be based on football decisions and not financial considerations, specifically Jones' $23 million injury guarantee for 2025. So if he gets hurt, Giants owe him money, more money. So, and this is something that the Raiders did with Derek Carr a couple years ago. When Josh McDaniels was the head coach, they benched him, and they started Jared Stidham for the last couple games. It's possible that Drew Lock does get the start. That's what it seems like. And also Adam Schefter was reporting that could have possibly been Daniel Jones' last game as a Giant, or at least being the starting quarterback for the Giants, losing to the Panthers recently. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. And I know that there are some people that think that if Daniel Jones gets benched, then that gives the Giants a better chance to win. Which, you look at the quarterbacks that they have on the roster. I mean, I still think Daniel Jones does give them the best chance to win. But that doesn't mean that the Giants couldn't back their way into another win at some point. But, you got the Cowboys on the schedule. You got the Eagles again. The Cowboys, they're not a good team this year. And there's no Dak Prescott for the rest of the year. So, we'll see what happens. But, you got the Buccaneers out of the bye. And the Bucs are, looking to finally get back in the win column because it's been a rough stretch for them. I would be surprised if the Giants do win another game. And if it's Drew Lock, then so be it. If it's Tommy DeVito, so be it. At this point, the Giants are, Giant fans are looking to get that number 1 overall pick. Well, let's see, though. Could the Giants get another win? Let's look at their remaining schedule. So, they have, out of the bye week, they got the Buccaneers. They got the Cowboys, the Saints, the Ravens, the Falcons, the Colts, and the Eagles. I really do think they should lose every single game. But it's possible that they, find a way to maybe win one more game. And once again, it's just amazing how my tune changed about this team because after their week 1 loss that I attended against the Vikings, I thought I'd be surprised if this team wins any more than 2 games. Then they beat Seattle, and I think, okay, maybe they turned the corner. Maybe, they could go on a run here. But now it's back to, are they even going to win another game? I really don't understand how they won that game in Seattle. I just don't get it. How did Daniel Jones look good in that game, and they win that? I don't get it. But you know what? They don't have they have good players on this team. I keep saying it. They do have good players on this team. It's just they need to get another quarterback. And I don't know how everything's going to unfold. Are they going to end up with the number 1 overall pick? And the other thing, too, is if this season continues to spiral out of control, which it already has, and they only end up winning 2 games, does Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen come back? Do Brian and Daboll and Joe Schoen come back? Or does John Mara say, we took a even bigger step back, I got to start over again? I hope that's not the case. I really hope that's not the case, because I do think that they should have an opportunity. I do agree with this. I do think that they should have the opportunity to take who they want, what quarterback they want. Now, you could also say, well, they also are the same people that gave Daniel Jones that new contract. So do they even deserve that opportunity? And that is a very good point. And again, the thing that set the Giants back, I mean, you could go back even further and just say taking Saquon Barkley with the number 2 overall pick and taking Daniel Jones with the number 6 overall pick the year after. But the thing that set the Giants back, let's just say strictly in the Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll era, I think what set them back is them overachieving in 2022 and winning that playoff game against the Vikings. That is what set them back, because Daniel Jones played really well in that game. And I kind of fell for it a little bit too, because he did make some good throws in that game. And I said, okay, maybe, you continue to build this roster up, maybe he could, do some things. But then they got blown out by Philadelphia the week after, and they really should have evaluated on that. But they gave Daniel Jones that contract. They didn't pay Saquon Barkley. I mean, they offered Saquon Barkley. They gave him some offers, but he just didn't accept them. And like I said, happy Saquon's doing well where he is. I am, regardless of what team it is, because you know what? He was not going to do it with the Giants. He wasn't. So, and you see, look, people have talked about it. Daniel Jones is a different quarterback when he's got Saquon Barkley running the football. And it's not like the Giants haven't been good at running the football. Tyrone Tracy has ran the football well. So it's just, he's just not the guy. He's not the guy. And we're in year 6 now. And it's just, there needs to be changes. And I think a lot of it, I mean, he's regressed too. And I pointed to, you could point it to the injuries and just, constantly going through different coordinators and head coaches. It's not easy. It's not easy. I think for him, he'll probably, I mean, it would not surprise me if, a couple of years down the line, we see him on a different team and he's playing well because he's in a better situation. It would not surprise me because we've seen that across the league. Guys finally find it on a team where it's the right situation. I mean, look at Sam Darnold. Look at Geno Smith. It wouldn't surprise me if Daniel Jones is the next one in a couple of years where he ends up on another team. He gets, he ends up stepping in as the starting quarterback and he plays well. But the injuries have not helped him, and the changes with the coaching staff have not helped him either. But when the Giants ran that flea flicker, which they never should have done. I mean, it's 3rd and 1. Just have your quarterback do a QB sneak or run the football, whatever. Why are you doing a flea flicker on 3rd and 1? I don't understand that. But the play would have worked. Daniel Jones did not throw the ball, though. And then he ended up getting sacked. I mean, has he lost confidence? And probably. So, it's just, if they bench him, it's the right decision. because he's not playing well. But at the same time, like, it would be nice to see the Giants win some games down the stretch here, but also you want to see them get another quarterback and get their franchise quarterback. And if you win games like you did last year with Tommy DeVito, when Tommy DeVito came in and won those couple of games, and you hurt your draft positioning, and then it's like, well, all the top guys got taken again, then what do you do? But who knows what this quarterback class is going to be like? You know? You got Shedeur Sanders out of Colorado, Cam Ward, Carson Beck, just to name the top guys. Jalen Milroe. Like, are those guys, I mean, if Brian Dable, you know, is the head coach of the Giants and they get one of them, I think that he would do wonders with who he gets. And I think he would make them into a good quarterback. I think with Daniel Jones, you're just limited. What makes Daniel Jones good is the fact that, you know, what makes Daniel Jones good is, you know, running the football. And, you know, that hasn't really been a weapon this year. So, you know, we'll see what happens. But, yeah, it's not looking good for Daniel Jones. So he's going to end up going somewhere else. And, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, but yeah, we will, we'll have to see. So we're going to take our last break of the show now. And when we come back, we will talk about the head coaches that are on the hot seat. So Brian Dable might be in that conversation. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the head coaches that are on the hot seat and probably, you know, teams that will experience some head coaching changes towards, or after the season. And we did talk about the Giants, and like I said, I think it really all depends on, you know, if the Giants finish with 2 wins, then Brian Dable, I think, could be gone, even though I don't think he should be. I just think the Giants should at least give them an opportunity to draft the quarterback that they want and then see what they do with that. And if it doesn't pan out, then both him and Joe Schoen should be gone. That's how I look at it. I do think when you look at some of the other head coaches, like Mike McCarthy, he's definitely gone from the Cowboys. You know, this is just a lost season for them. And even, you know, with the Dak Prescott injury, if Dak didn't get hurt, I think McCarthy is still likely gone. So, yeah, that's another head coach that is going to be out. Doug Peterson of the Jaguars. Now you got Trevor Lawrence injured. I mean, the Jags, I mean, how far they have fallen since that 8-3 start last year. You know, it just he's probably gone too. And I was happy that he turned it around there. You know, they went on that run at the end of the 2022 season and made the playoffs, won that playoff game. You know, especially because of how Trevor Lawrence's rookie season went. And, you know, you thought 2022 was a step in the right direction. So, you know, that's, you know, it's unfortunate what happened with Jacksonville. But, yeah, he's probably gone. The big one, too, is Matt Eberflus. You know, just the Bears season, it's gonna be tough. You know, with the tough schedule that they have coming up, basically playing against every team in their division. So, we'll see how it ends up. It ends up going, but you know, the Bears made improvements last year. I mean, they got hot towards the end of the year, and you know, they still kind of hung in for the playoffs, but you know, they did end up missing it. And you know, going into this year, you know, you get Keenan Allen. You know, they draft Rome Odunze, they bring in DeAndre Swift, they brought in all these other weapons to help out Caleb Williams in his rookie season, and they were hoping that, you know, Caleb Williams would have this big rookie year, and it's kind of been a disappointment. But it is just his rookie season, and I do think that he does have the tools, and I do think that he is going to end up being a good quarterback. It's just I think they need the right head coach in place. And I don't think Matt Eberflus is the guy. And also, like, it was a bad look when you're leaving Caleb Williams in the game against the Cardinals when they clearly had no shot of winning the game or coming back. And, you know, he could have got really hurt. You know, got banged up in that game. So, and then, I mean, just this most recent loss to the Patriots where, you know, the offense just was flat. Only putting up 3 points. They haven't scored an offensive touchdown in a couple of weeks now. You know, and we'll see now with the change at offensive coordinator. We'll see if that leads to anything. But I think Eberflus is probably another guy where he is going to end up losing his job as well. And then other than that, I mean, well, Dennis Allen already lost his job. Actually, the other one too. Dave Canales, does he end up losing his job? I mean, I think, you know, with the Panthers winning these last two games, you know, that has shown us something at least. I know it was against the Saints and the Giants, but, you know, the Panthers couldn't beat anybody. Their only win came against the Raiders, and that was when Andy Dalton was quarterback. And, you know, was Bryce Young spectacular in these games? No, but he definitely played a little bit better. I don't think they are going to bail on Canales after 1 year. I think he should be okay. But who knows? In the AFC, could Stefanski be out? Maybe. Stefanski, I don't really know. I think, I mean, he did win Coach of the Year last year. But, I mean, if the Browns only win 2 games, and it's just, that's another team where you just really don't know. Because, you know, I mean, you got Deshaun Watson, his contract you still got to deal with. You know, it's just, that's tough. Browns are in a tough spot right now. So, yeah, I don't really know. I don't know what they're going to do with Stefanski. That's an interesting one. I mean, the Jets already let go of Saleh. If the Dolphins go on a run and they make the playoffs, I think Mike McDaniel's safe. And I think maybe if they fall just short, he's safe either. I mean, I think he's safe regardless because, you know, Tua got hurt. And if Tua doesn't get hurt, the Dolphins would have had a better year. And they could still salvage this season, but they really got to go on a run. Antonio Pierce is interesting for the Raiders. They're 2-7 right now. And I actually was happy that he got the full-time job, but the Raiders have been a huge disappointment. So, I don't know. Maybe they let him go and they start over there. But I think the ones that are most likely gone, well, McCarthy's already on an expiring contract, so he's a definite. But I'm going to say Doug Peterson as well. Most likely he's gone. And then, unless the Bears go on a run here, and, you know, they finish the year strong with this tough schedule, Eberflus is gone too. I mean, Dable's a tough one just because, again, I think he's a good coach, but it's just Daniel Jones has made the Giants look bad. But the defense also, hasn't been great in recent weeks either. I can't just say it's just Daniel Jones. I mean, he is a big part of the problems with the Giants. But, now the defense has started to break down a little bit. Especially, against the run last week, against the Panthers. They Chuba Hubbard ran all over them. But Chuba Hubbard also got paid recently, got a new contract, and, that's why. So, but I do think, the three guys that I mentioned before, you got Doug Peterson, Eberflus, McCarthy, is not getting a new contract. Those guys will be out. And, you got guys out there like Belichick and Vrabel. So, and maybe some of these offensive coordinators, like Ben Johnson's going to be looking for a head coaching job. So we'll see, if he gets hired by someone. So let's see. You're going to have the Cowboys that are going to have an opening, the Jaguars, the Bears, the Jets, the Saints are going to be looking. There's definitely going to be a decent amount of teams that are going to have vacancies when it comes to the head coach. So, and, we'll see who ends up filling in those roles. But, that's basically it when talking about the head coaches. That's just something I wanted to touch upon. Just because we're more than halfway through the season and, you kind of have an idea of, for the most part, who's on the hot seat. And we already had some head coaches get let go in the middle of the year. But, there are several that won't be back with their respective teams after this year. Maybe some that I didn't even talk about. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the show for today. Again, we got a big game tonight between the Commanders and the Eagles. It should be a good game. Like I said, both games were really good last year. So I expect more of the same. And now you got Jayden Daniels in there. So, I think he's going to have some big moments tonight. Could Nick Sirianni be another one? If the Eagles have a collapse similar to last year, then yeah, he's definitely gone. But, if they make the playoffs, they win a couple playoff games, they play in the NFC Championship game, then I think even if they just make the playoffs, I think they're fine. But a lot of people say they're winning in spite of their head coach. And, Eagle fans, kind of had it with Sirianni. So, but he's still the head coach, and they're 7-2. So right now, his job is safe. But you never know. You never know because the Eagles had that collapse last year. But, hope you guys enjoyed the show. Enjoy the game tonight. And, again, we'll be back again tomorrow. We will preview the big games for this weekend. We got, a few of them that I want to talk about specifically. Ravens, Steelers, Chiefs, Bills. Some big games this weekend that we will cover on the show tomorrow. And, of course, all the big matchups in college football. I apologize. I was supposed to, during the playoff picture segment I did yesterday, I was supposed to bring up the college football playoff rankings, and I failed to do that. So I will make sure to do that tomorrow when we go over the matchups for this weekend in college football, and also take a look back at the matchups from last week. But yeah, that's on me. I apologize for that. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Make sure to check out all the other shows. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the video. And as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to